It didn't hesitate. It didn't blink, while a human pilot would have blacked out, gasping for oxygen as blood drained from their brain. The machine kept calculating. In a classified airspace over the Mojave Desert, something happened that changed warfare forever. An artificial intelligence, housed in the cockpit of an experimental fighter jet, went head-to-head against one of America's most experienced F-16 pilots. The pilot had thousands of hours of combat experience, decades of training, instinct sharpened in real war zones. The AI had been awake for less than a year. The AI won 5 times, 5 consecutive dogfights. The human pilot never stood a chance. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a Hollywood fantasy. This is happening right now, in the skies above America, and most people have no idea. The United States military has developed an AI-powered fighter jet so advanced, so intelligent, so terrifyingly efficient, that it's forcing the Pentagon to rewrite the rules of air combat. But here's the part that should keep you awake at night. This AI doesn't just fly better than humans. It thinks differently. It makes decisions in milliseconds that would take a trained pilot several seconds. And in aerial combat, a few seconds might as well be an eternity. You're already dead before you realize you've been outmaneuvered. The question isn't whether AI will replace human pilots. That debate is over. The real question is far more disturbing. What happens when the most lethal weapon ever created doesn't need a human to pull the trigger? Let's go back to the beginning, because to understand why America is betting everything on AI fighter jets, you need to understand how we got here. And it starts with a problem the military has been desperately trying to solve for over 70 years. The year is 1953. The Korean War is raging. American fighter pilots are locked in brutal dogfights with Soviet-made MiG-15s. Over the frozen mountains of North Korea, jets scream through the sky at speeds no human had ever experienced before. But there's a problem, a deadly problem. Pilots are blacking out. When a jet pulls a sharp turn at high speed, the gravitational force spikes, blood drains from the brain, vision narrows into a tunnel, G-LOC, G-force-induced loss of consciousness. And when you're flying a multi-million-dollar fighter jet at 600 miles per hour, blacking out is a death sentence. The military tried everything. Pressure suits that squeeze the legs and abdomen to keep blood in the upper body, breathing, techniques, physical conditioning. But there's a hard limit. The human body can only withstand so much. Even the best pilots, the elite of the elite, can't handle more than 9 Gs for more than a few seconds. And that limit has defined air combat ever since. Every fighter jet ever built has been designed around that limit. The F-15 Eagle, the F-20 Raptor, the F-35 Lightning. These machines are capable of maneuvers that would rip them apart, but they're restricted, held back, not because of engineering limitations, but because of the fragile humans sitting in the cockpit. We've built machines that can pull 15 Gs, 20 Gs, maneuvers so violent they would turn a human into unconsciousness in seconds. But we can't use that capability. It's like owning a Ferrari and never going above 30 miles per hour because your passenger gets carsick. For 70 years, the human body has been the weakest link in air combat. Until now, the breakthrough didn't come from the Air Force. It came from a place nobody expected. A small, secretive tech company in California called Shield AI. In 2019, they started working on something radical. An AI system that could fly drones in environments where GPS didn't work. Places like inside buildings, underground tunnels, dense urban combat zones where satellites couldn't penetrate. Their first product was a small quadcopter called HiveMind. It could navigate bombed-out buildings in Syria, mapping rooms, identifying threats, all without a human controller. Special forces loved it. But the engineers at Shield AI realized something. If their AI could navigate a chaotic, GPS-denied environment with a cheap drone, what could it do with a fighter jet? That question caught the attention of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the same organization that invented the internet, stealth technology, and GPS. DARPA doesn't do incremental improvements. They do moonshots. And in 2020, they launched the most ambitious moonshot in modern military history. the Air Combat Evolution Program, ACE for short. The goal was simple, at least on paper. Build an AI that could beat human pilots in dogfights, not assist them, not support them. Most people thought it was impossible. Dogfighting is an art as much as a science. It requires intuition, instinct, the ability to read your opponent and predict their next move. These are human qualities, things machines supposedly couldn't replicate. But DARPA didn't care about what was supposed to be possible. They gave 8 companies 1 year to prove it could be done. Shield AI was one of them. So was Lockheed Martin. Boeing, Northrop Grumman, the biggest names in defense, and a few small startups nobody had heard of. The rules were clear. Build an AI. Train it. Then put it in a simulated dogfight against a human pilot. Winner takes all. For the next 12 months, these teams worked in secret. They used a technology called reinforcement learning. It's the same technique that taught AI to beat the world's best players at chess, Go, and StarCraft. But this was different. In a video game, mistakes are harmless. In a fighter jet, mistakes are fatal. The AI had to learn not just to win, but to win without killing itself. Engineers ran billions of simulated dogfights. The AI fought against itself, learning from every mistake, every failure, every death. It crashed thousands of times. Stalled, spun out of control, got shot down over and over. But with each failure, it got better. By August 2020, the competition was ready. The setting was a virtual battlefield, a perfect digital replica of a real combat zone. The human pilot was an Air Force instructor with over 2,000 hours of flight time. He climbed into a simulator, strapped in, and prepared to face the AI. The fight lasted less than 90 seconds. The AI won. The pilot didn't even get a shot off. 5 fights, 5 losses. The pilot was one of the best in the Air Force, and he was completely outclassed. When the results were released, the military community went silent. This wasn't just a milestone, it was a revolution. But here's what most people missed. The AI didn't win because it was faster or stronger. It won because it thought differently. Human pilots are trained to follow tactics, established maneuvers, the Immelman turn. The split S, the high yo-yo. These are techniques refined over a century of air combat. They work, but they're predictable. The AI didn't know these tactics. It didn't learn from human instructors or flight manuals. It learned from scratch. It discovered its own strategies, maneuvers no human had ever thought of, moves that didn't have names. And because the human pilot was trained to expect certain patterns, he couldn't adapt. It was like playing chess against someone who didn't know the rules, but had played 10 million games against themselves. They've seen combinations you haven't. They've explored strategies you didn't know existed. That was 2020, 3 years ago. Since then, the program has exploded. What started as a research experiment is now a full-scale weapons development program. And it's not just happening in simulators anymore. It's happening in real jets, in real skies. Enter the X-6 to Vista. Variable in-flight simulator test aircraft. On the surface, it looks like a normal F-16. Same sleek profile, same single engine, same bubble canopy. But underneath, it's been completely transformed. It's a flying laboratory, a testbed for the future of air combat. And in the past 2 years, it's flown over a dozen missions with AI in full control. Not autopilot, not assistance, full autonomous control. The AI takes off, navigates, engages in combat maneuvers, dogfights, all while a human safety pilot sits in the cockpit with their hands hovering near the controls, ready to take over if something goes wrong. But here's the thing, they haven't needed to. The AI has performed flawlessly. In one test flight over Edwards Air Force Base, the X-60 pulled a maneuver that made experienced pilots gasp. It entered a high-speed dive, rolled inverted, then pulled up into a vertical climb, while simultaneously engaging a simulated enemy aircraft. The G-forces spiked to over 10. No human could have stayed conscious through that, but the AI didn't care. It calculated the exact angle, the exact speed, the exact moment to fire. And it won, again. The military isn't talking about this much. Most of these tests are classified. But the few details that have leaked out paint a terrifying picture. The AI doesn't just fly the jet, it understands the battlefield. It tracks multiple enemy aircraft simultaneously. It predicts their movements. It chooses optimal attack angles. It knows when to engage and when to retreat. And it does all of this while processing data from sensors, radar, electronic warfare systems, all in real time. A human pilot can track maybe 2 or 3 enemy aircraft at once. The AI can track 20. A human pilot needs several seconds to process a threat and decide on a response. The AI does it in milliseconds. If this is already blowing your mind, take a second to like the video and subscribe, because what's coming next gets even more intense. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. The question everyone's asking, but nobody wants to say out loud. Will this AI kill people? And more importantly, will it make that decision on its own? The Pentagon is very, very careful with its language here. They insist that humans will always be in the loop, that no AI will ever be allowed to make a lethal decision without human authorization. But here's the reality. That promise is built on old assumptions that are already starting to crack. Think about the speed of modern air combat. When two fighter jets engage, the entire fight can be over in seconds. A missile traveling at Mach 3 covers a mile in less than 2 seconds. By the time a human pilot sees a threat, processes it, and decides to respond, the AI has already run through 1,000 scenarios. It's already calculated the optimal response. It's already prepared to execute. Asking for human permission at that point isn't just slow, it's a death sentence. So the military has started to redefine what it means to have a human in the loop. Instead of a human making every decision, the human sets the rules of engagement. They define the mission parameters. They tell the AI what's a valid target and what's not. And then they step back and let it work. It's like setting up a chess computer and saying, win the game, but don't sacrifice the queen. You're not making every move. You're setting boundaries. But here's where it gets complicated. Boundaries work great in theory. In practice, war is chaos. The enemy doesn't follow your rules. They'll use tactics you didn't anticipate. They'll put civilians in places you didn't expect. They'll jam your communications so you can't update the AI's orders. And in that moment, when the AI encounters a situation it wasn't programmed for, what does it do? Does it shut down and wait for instructions? Or does it adapt? If it adapts, if it makes a decision outside its original parameters, is that still human control? The military doesn't have a good answer to that question yet, and that should terrify you. But let's put ethics aside for a moment, because whether we like it or not, this technology is coming, and America isn't the only country developing it. China has publicly stated that AI-powered fighter jets are a strategic priority. They've been testing their own autonomous systems for years. Russia is working on the S-70 Okhotnik, a stealth combat drone designed to fly alongside manned fighters and take orders from AI. Iran, North Korea, Turkey, even Israel, everyone is racing to build this capability. Because whoever gets there first doesn't just have an advantage, they have dominance. Imagine a future war between two advanced militaries. One side has AI-controlled jets, the other doesn't. The side with AI sends 100 drones into battle. They move in perfect coordination. They adapt to threats in real time. They don't get tired. They don't get scared. They don't make mistakes. The human pilots on the other side are outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and overwhelmed. It's not even a fair fight. It's a massacre. That's why the United States is pouring billions into this technology. Not because they want to, because they have to. Because if they don't, someone else will. And that someone will use it against them. So what does this new AI fighter jet actually look like? The one that's smarter than any pilot? Well, that's the thing. It's not one jet. It's a system. A family of aircraft working together. At the center is the next generation air dominance fighter NGAD. This is the replacement for the F-22 Raptor. It's a 6th generation fighter, and almost everything about it is classified. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know its exact capabilities, but we know a few things. It's designed to operate with AI from the ground up. It's not a retrofitted F-16. It's built for this, and it won't fly alone. Alongside the NGAD will be a fleet of smaller, cheaper, unmanned jets called Collaborative Combat Aircraft, CCA letters. Think of them as loyal wingmen, drones that fly in formation with the manned fighter, taking orders from the pilot or the AI. But here's the brilliant part. These drones are expendable. They cost a fraction of what a manned fighter costs. Maybe $20 million each compared to $200 million for an F-35. So you can send them into the most dangerous situations. Use them as decoys, as missile sponges, as forward scouts. And if they get shot down, you haven't lost a pilot. You've lost a machine you can replace. The Air Force plans to build hundreds of these CCA letters, maybe thousands, and each one will be controlled by AI. They'll swarm enemy positions. They'll overwhelm air defenses. They'll operate in contested airspace where it's too dangerous to send humans. And the scariest part, they're already being built. Contracts have been awarded. Prototypes are flying. This isn't a concept, it's happening. But let's dig deeper into how the AI actually works, because this isn't some generic algorithm. This is cutting-edge machine learning designed specifically for combat. The system is built on something called deep reinforcement learning combined with neural networks. If that sounds complicated, think of it this way. The AI has been trained by flying billions of simulated missions. Every possible scenario, every possible threat, every possible weather condition. It's fought against every type of enemy aircraft, every missile system, every defense network. And it's learned what works and what doesn't. But it doesn't just memorize solutions, it builds intuition. Just like a human pilot develops a gut feeling for when something's wrong, the AI develops patterns. It recognizes when an enemy is setting a trap, when a radar signature doesn't match the expected threat, when a formation is too perfect, suggesting a decoy. And it does this by processing data from dozens of sensors simultaneously. Radar, infrared, electronic warfare systems, data links from other aircraft, satellite feeds, all of it merged into a single, coherent picture of the battle space. A human pilot sees a radar screen with a few blips. The AI sees a living, breathing map of the entire battle. It knows where every aircraft is, where every missile is. It predicts where they'll be in 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. And it's constantly running scenarios. If I turn left, what happens? If I climb, what happens? If I fire now, what's the probability of a hit? It's playing out hundreds of potential futures every second and choosing the path most likely to succeed. And here's where it gets really fascinating. The AI has started to develop tactics that human pilots don't understand. In one classified test, the AI executed a maneuver that looked completely wrong. It flew directly toward an enemy missile instead of evading. The human observers thought it was a malfunction. But at the last possible second, the AI pulled a high G turn. That caused the missile to overshoot. Then it looped back and engaged the enemy aircraft before it could fire another shot. When engineers analyzed the data, they realized the AI had calculated that the missile's turn radius was too wide. It couldn't adjust fast enough. So instead of running, the AI baited it into a position where it would miss. No human pilot would have thought of that. It's counterintuitive. It violates every instinct. But the math was perfect. This is what makes AI so dangerous. It's not bound by human instinct or tradition. It doesn't care about what's supposed to work. It only cares about what does work. And that makes it unpredictable, even to the people who built it. Now let's talk about the economic side of this. Because this technology isn't just changing how wars are fought. It's changing the entire defense industry. Building a modern fighter jet is insanely expensive. The $1 trillion. That's trillion with a T. And that's just to develop and build the jets. Operating costs billions more every year. Each F-35 costs about $80 million. Each F-22 costs over $150 million. And you need highly trained pilots, each of whom takes years and millions of dollars to train. But an AI-controlled drone? You can build it for $20 million, maybe less. And you don't need to train a pilot. You write code. You run simulations. You upload the software. Done. This changes the entire calculus of air power. Instead of building a small number of ultra-expensive manned fighters, you build a large number of cheap, expendable drones. You overwhelm the enemy with numbers. And if they shoot down 10 of your drones, you don't care. You just send 10 more. This is already causing panic in the defense industry. Companies like Lockheed Martin and Boeing have built their entire business model around expensive manned aircraft. If the future is cheap drones, their profit margins collapse. That's why these companies are scrambling to pivot. Lockheed is developing its own AI systems. Boeing is partnering with startups. Northrop Grumman is betting big on autonomous platforms. But the real disruption is coming from companies that didn't even exist 10 years ago. Shield AI, Anduril, Skydio. These are tech startups founded by Silicon Valley engineers who saw the future before the big defense contractors did. And they're moving fast. Anduril, founded in 2017, is now valued at over $8 billion. They've built autonomous surveillance towers, AI-powered counter-drone systems, and they're developing a fighter-sized unmanned aircraft called Fury. It's designed from the ground up to be controlled by AI. No cockpit, no life support, no ejection seat, just sensors, weapons, and a brain. And it's designed to be built fast and cheap. Anduril claims they can produce a Fury for a fraction of the cost of a traditional fighter, and in a fraction of the time. If they're right, it could make traditional fighters obsolete. The Air Force is watching this very closely. They've started something called the Digital Century Series. The idea is to design, build, and field a new fighter jet in just a few years instead of the decades it normally takes. How? By using AI to speed up design, by using advanced manufacturing, and by accepting that these jets might only be in service for 10 or 15 years before being replaced by something better. It's the opposite of how the military has operated for the past 50 years. Instead of building one perfect jet that lasts forever, you build good enough jets and iterate quickly. It's how the tech industry works, and now it's coming to defense. But this raises a troubling question. If jets become cheap and disposable, does war become easier? If you don't risk losing pilots, does the political cost of going to war drop? History suggests yes. Every technology that reduces casualties for one side makes that side more willing to use force. Drones made it easier for the US to conduct strikes in Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia. Because American lives weren't at risk, the threshold for action dropped. Now imagine that on a massive scale. Imagine a president being told, "We can take out that enemy air force with zero risk to American lives. It's just machines fighting machines." Does that make the decision easier? Almost certainly. And that should worry us, because war should be hard. It should be a last resort. The moment it becomes easy, the moment it becomes painless, we lose something essential. We lose the weight of the decision, the gravity of sending people into harm's way. If war becomes a video game played with disposable robots, we risk losing our humanity. But let's bring this back to the technology, because there's another layer to this that most people don't understand. The AI in these fighter jets isn't just for combat, it's for survival. Modern air defenses are terrifyingly effective. Russian S-400 missile systems can track and engage dozens of targets simultaneously from hundreds of miles away. Chinese HQ-9 systems are just as lethal. American pilots call these environments AAA, anti-access, area denial, places where it's almost suicidal to fly. But AI changes the game. An eye-controlled jet can fly lower, faster, and more unpredictably than any human. It can execute terrain masking maneuvers, hugging the ground at 500 feet while traveling at supersonic speed. A human pilot would crash. The AI just calculates the terrain ahead, adjusts its path in real time, and keeps going. It can also operate in environments where GPS is jammed or spoofed. Human pilots rely on GPS for navigation. Without it, they're lost. The AI uses something called visual inertial navigation. It looks at the ground. It matches terrain features to maps. Stored in its memory, it calculates its position based on movement and acceleration. It doesn't need satellites. It doesn't need radio signals. It can navigate in total electronic silence. This makes it almost impossible to jam, almost impossible to stop. And then there's electronic warfare. Modern fighter jets are equipped with systems that can jam enemy radars, spoof missiles, disrupt communications. But using these systems effectively requires split-second timing and deep understanding of electromagnetic spectrum. Most human pilots have a basic grasp of it. The AI is an expert. It can detect enemy radar frequencies analyze their patterns, and deploy countermeasures with perfect precision. It can even learn enemy tactics in real time. If an enemy radar changes frequencies to avoid jamming, the AI notices and adapts. It's a chess match played at the speed of light, and the AI is very, very good at chess. But here's the part that keeps military planners awake at night. AI doesn't just make friendly jets smarter, it makes enemy jets smarter too. China is developing its own AI systems, and they're not playing by the same rules. The US military has ethical guidelines, congressional oversight, public scrutiny. China doesn't. If their AI performs better by removing safety restrictions, they'll remove them. If it performs better by making lethal decisions autonomously, they'll allow it. This creates a dangerous arms race, not just in capability, but in autonomy. Each side pushing the boundaries of what their AI can do, trying to stay ahead of the other. And the risk is that somewhere in that race, someone crosses a line they can't come back from. Imagine a scenario. A Chinese AI-controlled jet enters disputed airspace. An American AI-controlled jet intercepts it. Both are operating under rules of engagement that allow defensive action. But what happens if the Chinese AI interprets a sensor lock as an attack? What if it retaliates? The American AI responds. Missiles are fired, jets are destroyed, and all of this happens in 30 seconds. Before any human can intervene, before any diplomatic channel can open, before anyone can say, wait, this is a mistake. That's the nightmare scenario, an AI-triggered war. And it's not science fiction, it's a real possibility. This is already causing panic in the defense industry. Companies like Lockheed Martin and Boeing have built their entire business model around expensive manned aircraft. If the future is cheap drones, their profit margins collapse. That's why these companies are scrambling to pivot. Lockheed is developing its own AI systems. Boeing is partnering with startups. Northrop Grumman is betting big on autonomous platforms. But the real disruption is coming from companies that didn't even exist 10 years ago. Shield AI, Anduril, Skydio. These are tech startups founded by Silicon Valley engineers who saw the future before the big defense contractors did. And they're moving fast. Anduril, founded in 2017, is now valued at over $8 billion. They've built autonomous surveillance towers, AI-powered counter-drone systems, and they're developing a fighter-sized unmanned aircraft called Fury. It's designed from the ground up to be controlled by AI. No cockpit, no life support, no ejection seat, just sensors, weapons, and a brain. And it's designed to be built fast and cheap. Anduril claims they can produce a Fury for a fraction of the cost of a traditional fighter, and in a fraction of the time. If they're right, it could make traditional fighters obsolete. The Air Force is watching this very closely. They've started something called the Digital Century series. The idea is to design, build, and field a new fighter jet in just a few years instead of the decades it normally takes. How? By using AI to speed up design, by using advanced manufacturing, and by accepting that these jets might only be in service for 10 or 15 years before being replaced by something better. It's the opposite of how the military has operated for the past 50 years. Instead of building one perfect jet that lasts forever, you build good enough jets and iterate quickly. It's how the tech industry works, and now it's coming to defense. But this raises a troubling question. If jets become cheap and disposable, does war become easier? If you don't risk losing pilots, does the political cost of going to war drop? History suggests yes. Every technology that reduces casualties for one side makes that side more willing to use force. Drones made it easier for the US to conduct strikes in Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia. Because American lives weren't at risk, the threshold for action dropped. Now imagine that on a massive scale. Imagine a president being told, we can take out that enemy air force with zero risk to American lives. It's just machines fighting machines. Does that make the decision easier? Almost certainly. And that should worry us, because war should be hard. It should be a last resort. The moment it becomes easy, the moment it becomes painless, we lose something essential. We lose the weight of the decision, the gravity of sending people into harm's way. If war becomes a video game played with disposable robots, we risk losing our humanity. But let's bring this back to the technology, because there's another layer to this that most people don't understand. The The AI in these fighter jets isn't just for combat, it's for survival. Modern air defenses are terrifyingly effective. Russian S-400 missile systems can track and engage dozens of targets simultaneously. From hundreds of miles away, Chinese HQ-9 systems are just as lethal. American pilots call these environments AAA, anti-access, area denial, places where it's almost suicidal to fly. But AI changes the game. An AI-controlled jet can fly lower, faster, and more unpredictably than any human. It can execute terrain masking maneuvers, hugging the ground at 500 feet while traveling at supersonic speed. A human pilot would crash. The AI just calculates the terrain ahead, adjusts its path in real time, and keeps going. It can also operate in environments where GPS is jammed or spoofed. Human pilots rely on GPS for navigation. Without it, they're lost. The AI uses something called visual inertial navigation. It looks at the ground. It matches terrain features to maps stored in its memory. It calculates its position based on movement and acceleration. It doesn't need satellites. It doesn't need radio signals. It can navigate in total electronic silence. This makes it almost impossible to jam, almost impossible to stop. And then there's electronic warfare. Modern fighter jets are equipped with systems that can jam enemy radars, spoof missiles, disrupt communications. But using these systems effectively requires split-second timing and deep understanding of electromagnetic spectrum. Most human pilots have a basic grasp of it. The AI is an expert. It can detect enemy radar frequencies, analyze their patterns, and deploy countermeasures with perfect precision. It can even learn enemy tactics in real time. If an enemy radar changes frequencies to avoid jamming, the AI notices and adapts. It's a chess match played at the speed of light. And the AI is very, very good at chess. But here's the part that keeps military planners awake at night. AI doesn't just make friendly jets smarter, it makes enemy jets smarter too. China is developing its own AI systems, and they're not playing by the same rules. The US military has ethical guidelines, congressional oversight, public scrutiny. China doesn't. If their AI performs better by removing safety restrictions, they'll remove them. If it performs better by making lethal decisions autonomously, they'll allow it. This creates a dangerous arms race, not just in capability, but in autonomy, each side pushing the boundaries of what their AI can do, trying to stay ahead of the other. And the risk is that somewhere in that race, someone crosses a line they can't come back from. Imagine a scenario. A Chinese AI-controlled jet enters disputed airspace. An American AI-controlled jet intercepts it. Both are operating under rules of engagement that allow defensive action. But what happens if the Chinese AI interprets a sensor lock as an attack? What if it retaliates? The American AI responds, missiles are fired, jets are destroyed, and all of this happens in 30 seconds. Before any human can intervene, before any diplomatic channel can open, before anyone can say, wait, this is a mistake. That's the nightmare scenario. An AI-triggered war. And it's not science fiction. It's a real possibility. The military knows this. That's why they're developing something called explainable AI. The idea is that the AI should be able to tell you why it made a decision. Not just what it did, but the reasoning behind it. This sounds simple, but it's incredibly hard. Modern AI systems, especially deep learning networks, are black boxes. They make decisions based on patterns and weights in millions of interconnected neurons. Even the engineers who built them can't always explain why they chose a particular action. It's like asking someone why they found a joke funny. You know you did, but explaining the exact neurological process is nearly impossible. So researchers are trying to build AI that thinks more transparently. AI that can say, I chose this maneuver because I detected a radar lock from bearing to 70, and historical data suggests this is a precursor to missile launch. So I executed a preemptive evasion. That's explainable. That's something a human can audit. But we're not there yet. Most of the AI flying today is still a black box. It works, it wins. But we don't always know why. And that brings us to testing. How do you know an AI is ready for combat? How do you test something that learns and adapts? Traditional weapons go through rigorous testing. fire 1,000 rounds, drop 100 bombs, fly 1,000 hours. If it works, it's certified. But AI is different. It changes. It learns from every flight. The AI that passed testing last month might behave differently today. So how do you certify it? The Air Force is developing something called continuous verification. Instead of testing once and approving, you test constantly. Every flight generates data. That data is analyzed. If the AI starts behaving unexpectedly, it gets flagged. Engineers investigate. Adjustments are made. It's a never-ending cycle. It's also expensive, labor-intensive, and imperfect. But it's the best solution we have right now. There's also the question of hacking. If your fighter jet is controlled by software, what happens if an enemy hacks that software? What if they inject malicious code? What if they take control of your AI and turn it against you? This is a real threat. Cyber warfare is already a major component of modern conflict. Every military system connected to a network is a potential target. The AI systems being developed are heavily encrypted. They use secure communication channels. They have multiple layers of authentication, but no system is unhackable. And the stakes here are enormous. If an enemy could compromise your AI, they could ground your entire air force, or worse, turn it into a weapon against you. That's why the military is investing heavily in AI security. Red teams are constantly trying to break into these systems. Hackers, both friendly and adversarial, are probing for weaknesses. Every vulnerability found is patched, but it's an arms race. As defenses improve, attacks get more sophisticated. And the terrifying truth is that we won't know how secure these systems really are until someone tries to break them in a real war. Let's shift gears and talk about the human side of this. Because while the technology is fascinating, the impact on people is profound. There are currently about 2,000 active fighter pilots in the U.S. Air Force. These are some of the most highly trained, highly skilled individuals in the world. Each one represents years of training and millions of dollars of investment, and now they're being told that a machine can do their job better. How do you think that feels? For many pilots, flying isn't just a job. It's an identity. It's a calling. The idea that they could be replaced by software is deeply threatening. Some pilots are embracing it. They see AI as a tool, a wingman that makes them better. They're learning to work alongside it, to trust it, to leverage its strengths while compensating for its weaknesses. These pilots will be the bridge generation, the ones who teach the AI and learn from it. But others are resisting. They argue that combat requires human judgment, human intuition, human morality. They point to situations where the right decision isn't the optimal one, where mercy, restraint, or creativity is needed, things they believe a machine can't provide. And they're not entirely wrong. There are aspects of combat that are deeply human. The ability to recognize when an enemy is surrendering, the wisdom to hold fire when civilians are at risk, the courage to make a hard choice when the rules don't provide an answer. These are qualities that AI struggles with, at least for now. The Air Force is trying to navigate this carefully. They're not replacing pilots, not yet. Instead, they're redefining the pilot's role. In the future, a pilot might not fly the jet directly. Instead, they'll command a squadron of AI-controlled drones from a control center. They'll set objectives, monitor performance, intervene when necessary. It's less Top Gun and more chess master. And for some pilots, that's an exciting evolution. For others, it's a loss, the end of an era. There's also the question of what happens to all the infrastructure built around manned aviation, flight schools, training programs, simulators, entire bases designed around the needs of human pilots. If AI takes over, much of that becomes obsolete. Thousands of jobs disappear. Entire communities that grew up around air bases face economic collapse. This isn't just a military issue. It's a social and economic one, and it's coming faster than most people realize. But here's the thing. This technology isn't just military. The same AI that flies fighter jets can fly passenger planes, cargo planes, medical evacuation helicopters, search and rescue drones. The applications are endless. And once the military proves that AI can handle the most demanding, most dangerous flying in the world, commercial adoption will explode. Imagine calling an air taxi that has no pilot, just an AI that picks you up and drops you off. It's cheaper, it's safer, and it's coming within the next decade. Some people find that exciting, others find it horrifying. But whether we like it or not, the age of human pilots is ending. Not because humans aren't good enough, but because machines are better. And in a world where better means faster, safer, and cheaper, the market always wins. So where does this leave us? What does the future look like? If current trends continue, within the next 10 years, the majority of military aircraft will be unmanned. I will handle not just fighter jets but bombers, tankers, reconnaissance planes, even helicopters. Human pilots will still exist, but they'll be commanders, not operators. They'll manage fleets of AI-controlled aircraft from secure locations far from the battlefield. This will fundamentally change the nature of air power. Instead of a few dozen jets, a country could field hundreds or thousands of drones. They'll swarm targets, overwhelm defenses, operate in conditions too dangerous for humans, and because they're cheap, losing them won't be a strategic disaster. It'll be an acceptable cost. This makes air power more accessible. Countries that couldn't afford a traditional air force will be able to field a fleet of AI drones. That's democratization of power, and it's destabilizing because the barriers to entry just dropped. A nation that couldn't challenge the US Air Force 5 years ago might be able to in 5 more years. Not because they're building better jets, but because they're building smarter AI. And it's not just nations. Non-state actors could get access to this technology. Terrorist groups, insurgents, criminal organizations. If you can buy a commercial drone and upload military-grade AI software, you have a weapon that can carry explosives, conduct surveillance, assassinate targets. And because the AI is making the decisions, there's no pilot to capture, no one to interrogate, just a machine following its programming. This is the dark side of AI warfare, the proliferation of autonomous weapons into the hands of people who don't follow international law, who don't care about collateral damage, who see violence as a tool, not a last resort. The United Nations has been debating autonomous weapons for years. Some countries want them banned outright. Others, including the United States, argue that a ban is unrealistic. The technology is too widespread, too easy to develop. A ban would only prevent responsible nations from using it. The bad actors would ignore it. So instead of a ban, the US is pushing for regulations, rules of engagement, international agreements on how autonomous weapons can be used. But enforcement is a nightmare. How do you verify that a country is following the rules? How do you inspect software? How do you prove that an AI is operating within acceptable parameters? You can't. Not really. Which means any agreement will be based on trust and in international relations. Trust is a rare commodity. So we're heading into a future where AI-controlled weapons exist, where they're spreading, and where the rules are unclear. It's a recipe for disaster. But it's also inevitable because the benefits are too great, the strategic advantages too significant, and the cost of falling behind too high. Nations will develop this technology because not developing it is a death sentence. And once it exists, it will be used. The only question is how much damage it will cause before we figure out how to control it. Now the real question is, would you trust this future? A future where machines make life and death decisions at speeds no human can match, where wars are fought by algorithms instead of soldiers, where the line between defense and offense, between protection and aggression, is determined by code. It's a future that's both thrilling and terrifying, and it's already here. The AI fighter jet smarter than any pilot isn't a prototype. It's flying, it's training, it's preparing for a war that might come tomorrow or 10 years from now. And when that war comes, it will be unlike anything humanity has ever seen. So what do you think? Is this progress or madness? Are we building tools that will protect us or weapons that will destroy us? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, stories about technology that's changing the world in ways most people don't understand, subscribe. Because what's coming next will shock you even more. The future isn't coming. It's already here. And it's moving faster than any of us can keep up with.